everybody, Connie Knox with Genealogy TV coming to you from my car as I drive to work this morning. But I wanted to share with you that I just finished last night editing a 3-part series on census records. And originally it was going to be one longer video, but it turned out that I felt it needed to be broken up into 3 parts. So part 1 is about the 1790 through 1840 census. Part 2 is about the 1850 to 1940 census, and part 3 is a strategy about how to find your family prior to 1850 when you can't find family members' names, only the head of households. So I hope you enjoy those. Coming up first is part 1. Enjoy the series. Hey everybody, Connie Knox here with Genealogy TV with a special episode about census records. So we're going to get started right now. All right, so the U.S. federal census records were taken every 10 years. And for genealogy, if you're not using census records, you should be. The U.S. census records for genealogists is kind of the backbone of your research. You must be using census records. Population schedules are going to be the most beneficial for you. And there are several other records that are available as well. And those are non-population schedules, the Indian schedules, the agricultural schedules, there's some slave schedules. But for today, we're going to focus mostly on the population schedules. So the schedules, these U.S. schedules, if you're new to genealogy and you've never used the U.S. federal census before, you're going to find this to be probably one of the most valuable resources that you have in your toolkit. So the U.S. Marshals, and later on they called them they used just enumerators, census enumerators, would walk door to door. And they would document each family group. Now, in the early census records, they only documented the name of the head of the household, and then later they added all names. So we'll go into each one of those here shortly. Information was provided by various people. It wasn't always the person at home. Sometimes it was a neighbor. So keep that in mind. So if we take a look at, I'm going to transition this over so you can see it a little bit better. If we take a look at this, in this case, it's a 1920 U.S. population schedule. You can see that we have James Jones, his wife Minnie, and Gertrude and Kenneth, their daughter and their son. It gives us their column, and this is the 1920 census, but we're going to dig into all of the different variations here shortly. But here we have the sex of the person, male or female, color, in this case white, and the age at last birth, in this case, age at last birthday. In this case, he is 33, she is 25. They have Gertrude, their daughter, is 5, and the 2 over 12 means that this person, Kenneth, the son, is 2 months old. Of course, the children are going to be single at that age. This particular census shows the place of birth of the person in that line, but it also shows the place of birth of the father. In this case, I found this one interesting. James Jones, his father was born on the Atlantic Ocean. That's the way I read that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like to me. And then the mother and her parents are both born in Ohio, and the children, of course, are all born in Ohio, except for the son is born in West Virginia. So that's kind of a quick and dirty look at that census record. So if we move on to my next slide here, there is a reason for this. One of the things that I want you to pay attention to is the month of enumeration. This is really important because if you're trying to estimate a person's age, or when they were born, what year they were born, the month of enumeration is important. So if you'll notice here, the early enumeration schedules were, okay, let me back up just a minute. We have census schedules from 1790 to present day, but only available to us because of the Privacy Act to 1940. So the enumeration month on the early schedules were in August. In 1830, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80, and 90 were in June. Actually, in 1900 as well, were in June. In 1910, it was in April. In 1920, it was January 1st. 1930, it's April 1st, and on to present day has been in April. So the reason for that is, if a person is listed as, say, 7 years old, but he hasn't had his birthday yet, it'll make a difference when you're estimating the birth year. Because when the enumerator walked around, whatever the birth year was at that time, whatever the age of the person was at that time, is going to determine what year he was born. So I hope that makes sense. So it's important to note on each record that you're working on what the enumeration month and day was at the top of the schedule. So here we have, I'm going to make this a little bit larger so you can see it, the U.S. federal census locations, places you can find the census schedules. So the archive.gov, and these are research census. You can also, these are, a lot of these are free resources. Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org. You can also find it on microfilm in a lot of the major libraries that are good for resources. And also make sure you check out US Gen Web. They have good information there too. And so we'll go into this a little bit more in a moment, but a lot of these resources are for free. So the U.S. federal census was done, like I said, every 10 years. It's available from 1790 to 1940. 1950 census will be available in 2022. So with each census record, with each enumeration, more and more information became available. And so in the early records, up to about 1850, the only listed, well, actually up to 1840, they listed the head of household, and then a lot of times it was just a count of how many people there were. And the census was created literally to count people. That's what its intention was for. So it was not expected at the time to be a genealogical resource. So we're grateful that it is, but so that information available every 10 years, beginning in about 1850, we start getting a little bit more information. So I highly recommend that people download the blank forms. And there's a reason for this. You can find free copies of the blank forms for every year of the census from 1790, 1800, 1810. I recommend you download them all. You can find them at Ancestry.com. You can find them at FamilySearch.org. And you can find them at Archives.gov. So I'm going to put the links to those in the show notes at the bottom of underneath the video here on YouTube. And then you can download those directly from those links. There's no obligation, no cost. They're all free. And so those are our resources for you. So moving on. Oh, these are the actual locations for the free downloads. And if you want to freeze the video for a moment and write those down, you can, but I will put these links in the show notes for you below. So one of the things you can do is click on, go to the National Archives, which is the archive.gov website that I showed you a moment ago. And it's also listed here on this slide. There's free resources available at this location for all the different years and places. See the National Archives for a listing of when and where the records are available, and I'm going to show you that because it's really kind of cool. Okay, so at the National Archives here, you can see where you can click here on the census information, and you can open up each one of these windows and learn all about the different. I love the 1880 census. I don't know why, but that's the one that I always play with. But it shows you exactly, it shows you where you, if you have to pay for it, if you can get it for free. This says Ancestry.com has it for free at any National Archives and Record Administration computer. Otherwise, you have to pay for it by subscription. But FamilySearch has it for free if you have an account. So if you don't have an account at FamilySearch, it doesn't cost you anything. I am not an employee of FamilySearch, but I'm just saying you probably should have an account there because you can catch a lot of records there for free. Taking you back over here, you can also see various resources for those schedules. You can also see that there's federal mortality schedules here. We're not even really digging into today, but there are lots of resources. Even the 1940 schedule is up here. Looking for, oh, there's the blank form. Okay, so other resources shows you the blank form that you can download. That's just another place to find it. So the name of the head of household for 1790 through 1840 only listed the names of the head of household, and then it listed how many people were in the household in various age groups. So those also changed slightly through the years. So for example, here the 1840 census, I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see it. The 1840 census in this example shows free white males, and each column has these different age groups. So under 10 years of age, of 10 years of age, and under 16, of 16 and under 26, of 26 and under 45, of 45 and upward. Okay, so if we look and see what that might look like, this is an example of the 1790 census, and as you can see, it is really kind of hard to read. This says free white males of years and up, of 16 years, no, of, see, I can't read it, right? So this is why I advise you to download the schedule. The blank forms give you the ability to read the titles, the headers on the page, because quite honestly, it's a cheat sheet, right? So if you're also, back in the day, we used to use these forms when we went and pulled the microfilm, and we sat at the microfilm reader and we would fill in these forms to help us document what we found in microfilm. And then later, this is dating me, later we were able to get copies of those microfilms. So, you know, I've got these giant copies of microfilm. Now everything's online, but I still believe in the forms because those headers are invaluable. And that gives you the ability to really read what this says, 16 and up, including heads of families. So if we go back to that other slide, now we can say, oh, yes, that's what this column says. And so that really kind of helps us with our research, especially in those early years. Now, you got to keep in mind, those early years weren't even written in books. There was no forms. There was you know, this is an example of the 1840 form, but there were no forms. They just put it on any piece of paper they had. They were told what columns they had to have and how they were counting the families. But the reality is there was no forms back in the early days. So those are examples of the forms that can help us with the headers. Now, those headers change over time. And the reason I'm pointing this one out, and I know this may even seem hard to read, but each one of these columns begins to change. For example, this first one says under 5 years of age, of 5 years and under 10. So they're now broken these down, and these are males, by the way, and then we've got females over here. And this, by the way, this whole section here is the left-hand side of the page, and this is the right-hand side of the page for the 1840 federal census. And again, this is just a form I downloaded off of archives.gov. But as you break this down, you can see this one says of 20 and under 30. So they're breaking down the age groups. And they are literally putting in these columns the head of the household's name, and then they're putting tick marks as to how many people are in each age group. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the Federal Census Record videos. Coming up next is part 2, taking us from 1850 to 1940. So enjoy part 2 of the U.S. Federal Census.